Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Trades Lady Happy Hour. Really excited this week for an awesome guest. Before we dive into that though, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. This has been a insane little journey doing these happy hours. Started doing them back during serious COVID kind of lockdown, and it's just taken off and has been going strong, and I've been so privileged to meet and share the stories of so many incredible women in the trades. And it's just been a really fun thing to do, and I hope you guys have been enjoying it as much as I have. Got lots of good plans this year as we continue to go into the year with this Trades Lady Happy Hour. We're looking to do more with it, spreading it a little bit more to some of the other social media platforms as well. So we have recently partnered with Drive Time, which is a really exciting partnership for us. And we really want to take a moment to acknowledge them and appreciate their commitment to women in the trades and really to improving the lives of trades folks working within their organization and bringing more folks into the industry. So really grateful to have them on board, and I'm really grateful for you guys for being here and continuously tuning in to meet these amazing women along with me. We talk about a little bit why we do this, why I do Trades Lady Happy Hour. Ultimately, my goal is for it not to be about trades women, for it to just be tradespeople, where I am not a female mechanic, I am just a mechanic. However, in the quest to get to that point, we have the reality that women make up a very, very small percentage of folks within the trades. And so often women in the industry feel like an only. They feel like an odd duck. Some of them have never met another woman like them. And I think it's really important to share their stories. I think most folks will think of maybe just a handful of women that they know who are in the trades, if any at all. They'll often point to folks like myself or Faye Hadley from All Girls Garage, amongst a number of other incredible women kind of doing the TV side of things. But there's a ton of other amazing women who are kicking butt in their daily lives, just doing the do, making it happen, and really creating a reputation for themselves based on their skills, not based on their gender. But I think it is important to celebrate women specifically within the trades and to share their stories. So thank you guys for supporting that and for being interested in that. So we thank all of our wonderful allies out there as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to this week's amazing tradeswoman. Her name is Kaylynn Simmons. She is known on Instagram as Classically Clutch. I've been really excited to meet her for some time now. I've got several of you have written in and sent me messages that she is somebody that I need to interview, and she's already been on my list for some time, so I'm really excited we were able to make schedules work out, so she'll be joining here shortly. Kaylynn is a clutch specialist for an NHRA top fuel dragster team. I hope I'm getting it right. I think it's a top fuel dragster team, NHRA. She has been in this industry for a long time. I know very little about racing, as you probably can tell from the way that I just introduced that. Not a race person, I just fix them when they're broken. Kaylynn has a different story altogether. I'm really excited to hear about what she does, her passion, how she got started. So let me move over here and see if I can find her in the room. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am fantastic. You are in the garage.
I am. Yes. I actually got done with work about an hour ago, and I just went home and cleaned up a little bit and figured I'd just jump on while I was here. So
I love it. I love it. Well, cheers. I'm drinking
Yes.
very unexciting water right now.
That's okay. That's okay. I actually poured myself a glass of wine for the first time in a really long time. So
Nice. Well, good for you. I'm sure you deserve every bit of it.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited to finally meet you. I've seriously heard so many amazing things about you. I can't even tell you how many people have written into me and been like, you need to interview this woman for happy hour.
Oh my goodness, that's so sweet. Oh my gosh.
Well, you've definitely inspired many and have made your mark with a lot of folks out there. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah. So let's actually really quickly introduce yourself, what you do. I probably totally mangled it because I'm not a race car kind of
That's
person. So correct me, tell me what you do, and then we'll dive into more stuff.
okay. So my name is Kaylynn. Actually, my nickname on the team is Bruce. That's a little fun fact.
Oh, I want to hear
I'm
that
28 years
story.
old. I'm from upstate New York originally. I actually live in Indianapolis now with my fiance, and I work in Southern Illinois, 4 hours away from home.
Oh my goodness.
I am the clutch specialist for Clay Milliken's Top Fuel Dragster. Previously, I've worked with Terry McMillan. I've also worked with Larry Dixon on his two-seater Top Fuel car, which is really cool. But I've been with Clay for 2 years now, but this is my 7th season. And I've been doing the clutch completely for close to 6.5 years. I got thrown into it really quickly. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
I love it. Okay, before we dive into like all of the details of this, I need to know, Bruce.
Oh my gosh. So I think this is relatively appropriate for the internet. So when I got to the team, I was hired directly out of college, like 24 hours out of college.
Wow.
And I met these guys on the team and everything, and everybody's name started with a K, like Kaylynn, Kenny, Chaz, Chris, Cody, like everybody. So anytime you called anybody, and with the air tools going on, everything, you don't know who anybody is talking to.
Right.
So like, you need a nickname. And I was like, okay, sure. And so somehow Bruce came out, and they said, well, if Caitlyn Jenner was once Bruce Jenner, and you're a girl that does guy things, you're going to be Bruce. And so I was like, all right, and it stuck. And for the longest time, nobody really knew my real name, which honestly was okay. It just kind of kept me on the low for a while. But yeah, so the majority of everyone out there just calls me Bruce, and then it makes it easier because I know if someone's calling me my Bruce, it's normally like a work-related thing, and it's obviously fans at the track and stuff who follow me. It's sometimes you got to separate the two, so it's honestly good to have like a little alias, I guess.
Yeah. I love that. That is so fantastic. All right, I have to ask though, are you ever like out at a grocery store or like just out in the world and somebody's like calling somebody else named Bruce and you turn around and they're like, why did you turn around?
My ears do perk up for sure. And then the really funny thing, and they had no idea when they named this was my dad's name is Bruce.
Oh.
So, but my ears do perk up, and I definitely, they kind of go, and I know they're not talking to me.
Right.
Who would expect a girl to turn around with that? But I just kind of like, okay, that's not me.
I love that. How does your dad, Bruce, feel about you being Bruce?
He loves it. I'm sure he's on here watching. He's my biggest fan, but his Instagram handle is actually like Bruce_original.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, he played right along with it, so it was super funny.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to go back in time with you because like this is a relatively unusual career in general. I'm assuming there's probably not a lot of clutch specialist, Top Fuel Dragster team members in general around the country.
Yeah.
And then as a woman, definitely, are there any others out there that you know of?
There are women who work in the lower ranks of drag racing, but as far as the professional level and Top Fuel or Funny Car, I am the only female currently on a team, like full time. I know there's a couple that help out some of the smaller part-time teams, but I am the only one that does this as a full-time profession.
Wow. Well, cheers to you for that and paving the way and being a trailblazer in so many ways. So
thanks.
How did you wind up here?
So like long backstory. Long story short.
No, tell the long story long.
Okay, so I grew up. My dad raced go-karts on dirt. It was just his hobby. I was glued to the fence. I wanted one so bad. I knew you could race at 5 years old. It took me 2 years of begging and pleading. And he made a bet with me. And at the time, Mary Poppins was my favorite movie. So he said, if I can spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, he would buy me a race car. So apparently, 7-year-old self, I don't necessarily remember actually doing it, but I studied and I studied and I studied and I got it right. And my mom was like, you just promised a 7-year-old a race car. So you're going to kind of have to figure that out. So they let me start racing at 7. I ended up racing all the way up through my first college degree locally, just in New York on dirt. I I was very fortunate to be able to win 5 championships throughout that time. Granted, they were track championships, so it wasn't any big star per se. We never really had the money to progress into a sprint car or anything bigger. Racing is obviously very expensive. And I was very fortunate, and I ended up going to an automotive class in high school to just do basic automotive, and realized that I also enjoyed that side of it. And it wasn't necessarily the driving, but the figuring out how everything mechanically works, and then taking that to my racing and connecting it on the racetrack into what I was feeling, and being able to coordinate with my dad and make better adjustments and stuff like that. And I graduated high school, and I was only 17 years old. So I was a little young to be moving across country to go to an automotive school that I wanted to go to. So I just went and got my local degree, like at a local college for business. I was like, I probably should have a backup plan in case the racing thing doesn't work out. And I realized, you know, once I got done with that, that I was truly missing what I was after. So I went to the University of Northwestern Ohio. I obtained my degree in high performance racing, automotive technology, and I got my CDL through the school. My heart was dead set on going to NASCAR, like dead set. Like, I'm from circle track racing, let's continue it, right? And I talked to a lot of friends and everything, and it was working my way towards that. And I had another friend I went to school with called me like 2 days before I graduated, and I hadn't picked anywhere yet where I wanted to go. And he's like, hey, do you want to go drag racing? And I'm like, I've never been to a drag race. I've like not even been to the track. I've never watched it. I've seen a little bit of it on TV, but I probably not best. He's like, well, you have a CDL and we need a truck driver really bad. And so I was like, okay, like nothing, like I licensed through the school, right? So you take like 8-10 weeks of class and you're like you go and get your license, of course, but right. I never been over the road, and there's nothing like, yeah, just come drive our millions of dollars worth of equipment around. So I was like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, but I still have never been drag racing. He's like, I think you'll be fine. We're just going to put you on tires. And I'm like, okay, I think I can handle that, right? And so I graduated school and literally like walked out of class and drove to Indianapolis. I was only like 3 hours from Indy. I stayed with that friend. I started work the next day, and they said, if we like you, we'll take you to Las Vegas. So 4 days later, I'm leaving, and we go to a race. And still, mind you, like I don't even know what goes on at a drag race. I mean, I get that they go down the racetrack when the green light turns on, but I'm pretty new to all this. So the top fuel dragsters go 330 miles an hour in 3.7 seconds down the drag strip. And when that car took off for the first time, you bet your butt that I was like, I don't even know what happened. Did someone just tell me what happened? And then it was like, what do we do now? Like, and they're like, no, come on, we got to go down and get the race car. And so I just, from there, about 7 races later, our clutch specialist left to go to a different team. And my crew chief is like, what do you know about the clutch? And I'm like, I didn't know what drag racing was 7 weeks ago. I mean, I know how a clutch works. I've gone to school. Sure. I've gone through automatic and manual transmissions, but I'm not sure, like in our application, where we're going to start at. So he threw me into it. The first 6 months were, I wouldn't say a total train wreck, but I mean, there's a lot of learning to pick up because we tear these cars down after each run, down to the bare block crank and cam, and put all brand new parts in it and have it running in 45 minutes. So
I can't even imagine.
It's insane. I couldn't believe it. And then it's hard to explain to people that essentially we do a NASCAR pit stop, except it's for 45 minutes and we're rebuilding the entire car. So granted, all of our parts are pre-prepped for us by the time we get to the track. That's what our 8 to 5 normal day job here is at the shop. But it was a lot to take in. And once we got through those 6 months of getting everything organized, getting me on the same track, it just all clicked. And I've been doing the clutch ever since. Unfortunately, my previous team did lose sponsorship to COVID. So my team had to relocate and find new jobs. So I landed here with Clay Milliken, and I absolutely love it here. We were really close with this team before I came down here. So it was just a special place to go for me. And we're still doing the clutch, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So I'm really happy I ended up in drag racing, to be honest.
That is an amazing story. Like, you just kind of hit the ground freaking running, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks almost. And then on top of it, you're trying to figure out your guys, you know, of course, being a female and figuring out where you kind of fit into the team of guys and how they feel about you being there and stuff like that. And I have been blessed both times with both of my teams that they are all like my brothers. We're like a family. We nitpick at each other like a family, but at the end of the day, they know there's things that I may need help with and they're willing to help out. And then there's other times where they need me to call somewhere and get something for them, and I'm small enough to do so. So we get each other back and forth on that. But I'm really, really lucky to be a part of such great teams with guys out here that are really awesome.
That's so incredible. I love that it started out as like because you had a CDL. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Most of the teams out here, it's like your golden ticket because the race haulers have to get to the track somehow. Sure. And especially with a lot of people just want to come out and drive the race hauler. That's what NASCAR does. You know, they have just purely race hauler drivers that do that, and they fly their guys in. But drag racing, we're a little old school on this side. You drive the truck, you crew on the car, you set everything up, you tear everything down, you drive it back in, you work at the shop. So we're an all-in-one kind of job. And it's really hard to find people who are mechanically inclined as well as being a truck driver. So coming out of that situation, like 80% of my interview is like, can you drive a 13 speed? You know, how much driving experience do you have? You know, are you comfortable with this? We're going to go to Las Vegas. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you'll have a co-driver, so you won't be by yourself. So it ended up working out just fine. And driving the truck now is one of my favorite parts of the job. I didn't think it was going to be, but I've seen so many places and been so many places that I grew up and lived in the same house in the same small town and never ventured out. And the things that I've done because of my job has been so great.
I can only imagine. So you went to business school, you said originally. You got your degree in business.
Yes. Yep. And I kind of specialized in marketing with the thought of maybe if the mechanical side doesn't work out, I still love racing. I would love to go for public relations, PR, marketing, or something like that. So I kind of went towards that. But at the time, at 17 years old, I was just like, I just need to like figure out what I want in life. And I ended up working at a dealership, you know, part-time not actually as a mechanic. I was actually in the detail. I was all over the place. I was in the detail shop. I was in the cashier's office. I washed cars, like wherever they needed me. I was in the parts department. But it gave me a lot of just little experience here and there about how the industry worked and just kept me convinced that that was the direction I needed to be going.
Yeah. Do you remember like a moment for you when it clicked, like I need to be working with my hands, I need to be doing something aside from in an office, or I want to be on cars, and like when you knew?
I don't know if I can think of it. I think when I finally went to like the automotive class, because if my dad's watching, he might smack me for saying this, but he was really good at taking the tools out of my hand growing up. So just impatient, right? And as I got older, I got to touch more things, but I really just hadn't been able to do it for myself. I always had somebody kind of there watching me, guiding me, helping me. And when I went to that class and you're expected to do those things on your own and go out and do an oil change and test out on it, you know, I finally got my hands on it and realized like the satisfaction of fully getting a job done. And even just simple as brake jobs, taking old parts off, putting new shiny parts on. And then I really didn't know how, like, going to NASCAR and going into the high performance world seemed so far for me. Like, just so, like, you got to know someone, be a driver. And it just seemed so far fetched. And when I went to the University of Northwestern, it was the connections I made. I was very fortunate enough to earn a SEMA scholarship. I went to SEMA and interned with a bunch of companies. And I think that was when the high performance side clicked. Like, this is a possibility. Like, people actually go to work every single day and work on race cars. Like, you can actually legitimately do that and sustain yourself. So that's when I really met just a ton of people. And the school had a racing team. So just like soccer or baseball, they had a collegiate motorsports team where we had 2 dirt modifieds and a couple like just stock cars that we raced at a local dirt track against other local people. And it was strictly ran, driven, by the students.
Wow.
So I had an opportunity to drive for the school. At one point, we all switched in and out. I crewed on the cars, and that was, and our coach essentially just oversaw, made sure everybody was safe and nothing was going to be detrimental to anybody. But then it was the science behind it. What change are we going to make and send our driver out there that's going to be safe and effective? And then we really got to see those changes. And it's not necessarily like we were, winning races as students, but we got to see our work show us what it was going to do. And that's when the high performance side, I think, clicked.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Were you exposed? You said something kind of key in there. Like, I didn't even know that there was a way to make a career out of this until being exposed to that. I feel like there's probably other folks, male and female, who probably feel the same way, maybe watching this right now, like not, obviously we see it on TV, we see the races happen, we see people crewing, we see that that's a thing, but like, maybe if you've never been exposed to racing or you're just beginning down that road and you want to see a career for yourself in it, the path that you went to get involved in this industry, do you feel like that's the most effective way for another person wanting to come up the way you have? Is that the best way to approach it?
I believe so. I truly believe the networking that I was able to do through college and the connections that they had, or any automotive school, I believe, in general. I know there's NASCAR Technical Institute out there. There's University of Technical Institute. Sam Tech in Texas does machine work on engine blocks and all that. So I think once I got to the school and you start talking to the teachers and going to these events, and as long as you get yourself out there, I could have sat in my apartment and done nothing and gone to school and worked on the car and went home. I was at every after school program that I felt I could be at that involved racing, and you start to meet these people and go to do all of these things. We were fortunate enough as the team, we went down to Daytona Speed Weeks and ran the cars down there, and you meet more drivers, more people, and you start talking to them and you just get their contact information. And I kept in contact with so many of those people. And then honestly, it led to a friend essentially that got me into the industry. But even still today, I call a couple of those suppliers that I met at SEMA and still deal with them. And I think just making sure you get yourself out there. Like, we've had people come to the ropes at a drag race and hand us resumes. That's a great way. You're at the race, you're already seeing what's going on. They're dropping off a resume, they're making it a point to talk to people, because you see, I think it took that scary point away from me, where it's like, behind the ropes or behind the wall at NASCAR, we're just people. We didn't do anything fancy other than have a mechanical background and have passion for the industry that we're in. And there's ways to get in there. You just have to want it and you have to go for it.
I didn't do anything special other than work your butt off and network your butt off. And
right. I guess, behind the scenes there, I definitely pushed myself for sure.
Right. But yes, we are all normal human beings, and but it's, anybody can do it, right? If they set their mind to it and really push the way you did, to continue to be involved. I'm curious, we hear often kind of the contrast or the conversation between like a typical 4-year college degree versus a trade school. You've done both.
Yes.
Are you glad that you did both?
I am, because in my mind, drag racing may not be forever. I think really that clicked in with me, unfortunately, when COVID hit. We were all sidelines. They essentially stopped racing, no different than any of the concerts and anything else that they saw people go out to see. They canceled everything because we couldn't have fans at the racetrack. And it really gave the perspective of, if tomorrow racing isn't a thing or the sport changes, I need to have maybe a backup plan. I was also lucky that my automotive degree was an associate's degree. The school was accredited, so I was fortunate enough to have essentially 2 full degrees. But the trade school, I think it gave you a purpose. Like, everybody's always going to need a trade. Even when I'm done drag racing, we are still going to be driving cars down the road. I don't see hoverboards in my future per se. And I guess we can go to school and learn that when we're ready. But there's always going to be the need for electricians, plumbers, HVAC, automotive mechanics, all of those things, the culinary arts, diesel mechanics. Like I actually am taking a trailer to a diesel mechanic tomorrow. I have an air brakes problem on my trailer that we can't fix here. So it's like there's always going to be a need for it. Whereas I feel like my business degree was generalized per se, and I could go get a job that would sustain myself. But is it going to be something that every day you wake up and love what you do? And I think that was important for me. I'm glad I have both for the experience and the backup plan per se. But I think I'm sticking around here for a while, and I know everything that I gain here, no matter what in the future, I have a job, whether it be a CDL, be working in a service management position at a dealership, working on cars. It doesn't matter. I have a skilled trade set that will keep me occupied for the rest of my life.
I love that. Amen to that. I agree. Like there's nobody can take that away, right?
Right.
But
right.
the reality of like experiencing COVID and having that kind of shut down, but at the same time, like you know how to work on vehicles, and like
right.
if you know how to tear apart everything and put it back together in 45 minutes, I'm pretty sure that you could kick some flat rate ass on at a dealership.
Right, right. That's no joke. They're not. We always talk in drag racing, like if we were to ever go get a real job, like how would we adjust? Because we're so used to running around with our heads cut off, it seems like. And it wouldn't seem like that behind the scenes because everything is like a choreographed dance. Like everybody knows where they're supposed to be at a certain time, no different than watching a NASCAR pit stop. But going, like I can't imagine going to an 8 to 5 setting right now. I feel like I'd be itching every 2 seconds, like this needs to be done. Like I'd be answering the phone within half a ring. Yeah. Like, like we got to make the next round. Oh, it's only 8:30 in the morning. We're good.
And there's no rounds. It's just a phone call, right?
It's okay.
I did the similar to you. I did like the college route, the typical, college route, and then went the trade school route and also associates as well. And I felt like there were things that I was taught in my traditional college that I did not learn in trade school, but there was also things that I learned in trade school that I did not learn in my traditional college, and not just the subject matter, right? Like,
yes.
I always can't help but feel like we're doing our kids a disservice by having it so polarized. Right. I can't speak English. Just having things so separated. I mean, do you feel like in your career, you're very well spoken, you've clearly you network, you work your butt off, but you've been strategic about it. Do you feel like your first degree kind of has lent itself towards your success in your second degree and your now career?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now that you've mentioned that, that really clicks for sure, because at my traditional degree, of course, like in English, you have to write a 25-page paper, right, to get out of that class. It's horrible, but you do it. And I know when I went to my trade school, and they do, to have an associate's degree, you have to take their general education classes. Okay. I did graduate, I took the credits and transferred them. That's what it was. I can't speak either. It's okay. So I transferred my credits over, and I didn't have to take those classes, but obviously my friends did. Yeah. And their exit English paper was 2 pages, and these guys were complaining, right? Like they are like, this is ridiculous. I don't even want to do this. And I'm like, two page. Oh my goodness, what I would have given to write a 2-page paper. But I think all of that stuff, the English and the math, and same thing with the math at the trade schools, they center it around the trade, right? You're going to learn automotive math, calculating the cubic inches of a block and bore length and all that stuff. It's focused, which is fine, but there's math and English and stuff that I learned at my traditional degree that I use day in and day out in my emails and coordinating with suppliers and ordering parts, and the professionalism behind it and the networking. I think for sure I grasped from the first degree, and then the second degree was all, let's go have some fun with some cool cars.
Yeah, I wish more math teachers and science teachers, especially in earlier education, would be able like to show kids how it applies in real life, right? Like how
Right.
many kids who are would love to do the work that you're doing are like, I hate math. But like
Right.
if they knew that it applied in the way that you get to apply it every
Exactly.
day, that's a
Right.
different story.
Oh, absolutely. I literally every day I use math and measuring equipment. So it's constant numbers all day long. And of course, when you're sitting in calculus class, you're like, no way, man, this is not, what am I going to use this for? But I mean, some of just the basic principles of finding, backing yourself. I mean, algebra you wouldn't think of, but you do have to back yourself out sometimes of stuff that's going on with a car and like, okay, you measure this and you measure this, but the piece that goes in between it needs to be what? So you're still finding X, I promise you. In real life, you're still going to find X. It's just going to be applied differently. And you have to be able to be competent in that and confident in it as well. I mean, calculators are there for you, of course, but in the speed and the pace that we're expected to do some things, and knowing fractions to decimals, like knowing that 3/8 is 375 in a decimal form, all those things, you're like sitting in math class and you're like, nope, Mr. Teacher, I don't care today. I promise. It's really worth it once you find a way to use it, for sure.
I still have not learned the whole like fractions to decimal thing. I hate to admit it.
I know 3/8. That's as far as it goes.
I mean, I can't even do like SAE wrenches because I grew up on metric as a European tech, right? So
Right.
it's awful. I'm like, I need the one that's 2 sizes up from a half. Like,
right. I would do the same thing with metric. Like, what's close to 7/16 in metric? I no idea. Like,
but metric is so easy. Like, what's bigger than a 15? A 16.
16. Right. Exactly. We should just switch it all, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. There was a question that came in early on, and I want to try to do my best to get other folks' questions answered as well. Somebody asked to talk about your mentors, or if you had a specific mentor that really kind of changed the game for you.
I would have to say probably my first crew chief, Rob Wendland. He really took a chance on me. I mean, looking at like what we've talked about with, I mean, I knew nothing about drag racing. And when I got there, they pushed me. And there's a story he loves to tell. It's not one of my favorites to tell. But I got into the track, and one of my responsibilities was putting the flywheel in the car. And it gets torqued to 180 foot-pounds. Here I am. I'm only 140 pounds right out of college. I'd been going to the gym because I knew this was an issue, right? And I get there and they're like, you need to be able to do this. Like, this is part of your job. And I was like, okay. It's like, let's do it, right? Well, the wing on a top fuel dragster goes up where the our clutch and everything is in. So you have to lean over the wing and do it. So there's really, and through the chassis bar. So like, there's no good way to get a wrench in there. The wrench has a 6-inch extension on it. So you really got to be able to hold the bottom of the torque wrench. And I am pulling and pulling and pulling with all my might, to the point where I'm so mad at myself, I have tears coming down my face. Because all that I could think of was I finally made it to where I wanted to be. And the fact that I'm a smaller person, I'm a female, I just don't have that strength naturally. And I obviously didn't turn into a bodybuilder in college, so I failed myself, and I'm like, this is it, I'm done. And I'm not sure if that was the turning point for Rob when he realized how much I really wanted to be there. But I ended up finding a different way. I went from the bottom of the car and I sat on the ground and I put my knees against the chassis and I braced myself and I got it done. And that's all they cared about. They're like, you know what? She went through the effort to figure it out and find a way that works for her. And that's some of the, I wouldn't even say struggles, but that's part of being a woman in the industry is sometimes we have to find different ways for us to be able to do things, and we process things differently and learn differently. And so that was, once Rob and I got on the same page, I owe everything I know about the clutch and top fuel cars to him. I mean, he spent very long hours with me, explaining everything. And when I had lists and lists and lists of questions, he would bring me up to the computers and show me all the maps and how the run went, and really pushed me to be the absolute best. And when I went to leave, he always joked in all of his interviews about the crew guys. And then he would always say, if she leaves me, I'm going to come find her because she's not allowed to leave. And he was actually the one that got me the job down here at Clay's when we had lost sponsorship. It had come to a point where he said, you guys all need jobs. And he started making phone calls, which landed me here. And he's still, I actually just saw him this past weekend. Everything I know, I mean, I'm so thankful that he just took the chance and kept faith in me throughout those 6 months of me just being like, I'm a mental overload. Like, I'm trying my absolute best. And so for sure, he's definitely, as far as in my career here, but growing up, my dad was always a huge part of it. My mom and dad both really just always told me you could be whoever you want to be. And so I never felt like it was out of reach.
I love it. And props to him, seriously, for being willing to take on somebody so green. I mean,
Right.
you'd put in the work, you'd done your schooling, you did all of that, but like you said, knew really nothing. And I think that's kind of a rarity these days, especially in these industries. Like, oh, I don't want to take on anybody who doesn't know what they're doing. And
right. And I'm actually to a point where I hire people for the team here.
Nice.
And I'm to that point where I'm like, okay. And we actually just we hired one of our new guys, and he's essentially I see a lot of myself in him, but there's so much work ethic within him that I know he's going to be fine because he shares the passion and he wants to be there. And I think looking back between Rob and my car chief at the time, Chris Newton, he's like my second dad at the track. They both just said, like, looking back on it, we knew you wanted to be here so bad that it was going to be worth it in the end to invest in you. And Chris actually came down here with me to Clay's car for a while. We've pretty much been inseparable ever since. And I have just two really great track dads that are always looking out for me. So it's really all to them why I made it. I made it out.
I love it. You said something interesting. I was like nodding my head feverishly when you're talking about like doing things different, right? Like sometimes we have to find a different way to do it. I was just having that conversation with somebody the other day because they were like, you know, self-conscious about it. Like people look at me funny when I'm doing this and they laugh at me because that's not the way they do it. Like, have you had that experience at all where people are doing the like, huh, what is she doing? And how do you, I mean, it sounds like you're so very like centered and rooted and grounded in the differences as well as the similarities of being a woman in this field. But did you have any issues with that kind of stuff as you were coming up?
I think when I was racing as a young kid, you know, there was no women at the track. There was one specifically, and I remember looking up to her. And I remember one night my dad had another father of another kid in my class that we were racing against straight up tell him I didn't belong out there. And at the time, I was just like, I didn't understand why. You know, at 7 or 8 years old, you're just like, I don't get it. You didn't understand that women weren't really a thing in racing at the time. We were just out there, and that's what we did. I didn't even think it was an issue. Like 8-year-old me is like, I just want to go fast. Like, just leave me be over here. And then growing up, it was definitely like when I was in automotive class, you know, the immaturity level of high school boys sometimes can definitely portray itself in a negative way. There were a couple definitely rumors and things that went around just for no reason other than I think I was successful in class. I mean, I was a straight A student, and not to brag, I think they were so mad that someone was successful and it happened to be a girl. So then of course we were going to be childish about it. And at that point, I really think turned the corner on I'm getting out of this town, and I don't care what anybody thinks, but I'm going places. And I really just wanted to prove everybody wrong. And now, you know, 7 or 8 years later, there's a part of me that was like, I don't think I ever necessarily needed to prove anybody wrong. Wasn't ever the point. I needed to prove it to myself that I was worthy enough and that I was going to do it for me. And so once I realized that it doesn't matter on the outside what anybody thinks about what I do, I just went for it. And as far as things, you know, the guys, there's a joke. Everyone jokes on the team. I'm always like, I don't have these muscles. You know, I don't have chest muscles like them. Some of them picking up some stuff. And so they always joke. They're like, oh, yeah, Bruce doesn't have these muscles. We got to go help her. But they're so willing about it, so willing. And you know, we all kind of help each other out in different ways. For me, I have experience. Most of my guys on my team right now are under a year experience. I share experience with them. Sometimes they share the physical help with me, or that I can't necessarily do something, or I will ask them to let me do it, but be there in case, you know, like pulling the blower off the car, you know, it takes two people. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it because picking it up, you kind of pick it up above your chest and it's so heavy. And so I was like, I'm just going to try it, but be here in case I need help. And I was fine. But there are times where, you know, you worry about that or have people ask. The most questions I get, I normally have my nails done, which I know is not normally a thing. But everybody's like, how can you work on the car and have nails? And I'm like, at the outside, I'm still a girl. Like, I still like getting dressed up every now and then. Like, I'm both. I got the best of both worlds. You know, I get to be girly. Everyone knows me at the track. I always have some crazy hair thing going on, or, you know, space buns or bubble braids. And I always try to do something different just because I don't get to live that side of my life very often. I'm constantly in all black clothing, covered in clutch dust, with my hair up in a messy bun. And after a while, you just kind of let the inner girl out. So, which I know for some girls in the industry, you know, they're all grease all day long. But I realized after a while that I don't have to be a dude.
Yeah.
I can still be a girl. So, yeah, that's probably the most weird looks that I get, is probably like, I get questions often about, like, they don't think I work on the car. They think I am PR or something because I may have makeup on or my nails done. And I had somebody just ask, oh, do you just pack the parachutes? And I'm like, nope, I actually work on the car. And they're just shocked, you know, because I guess my appearance, maybe I do get the weird looks, I guess, more so on my appearance than how I do things. But
interesting. Yeah. I feel you though on like the needing to express that side. Like how long have you been in the industry?
This is my 7th season.
Okay.
I started when I was 22, I think. Oh my gosh. I'm 28 now. And this is the start of my 7th season. So 6 years. That's
incredible. First of all, like, oh my God. I've been saying this a lot recently because I keep meeting these amazing, like, young women who are just doing like the dopest stuff and really
your
killing
lives
it.
are awesome. I try to catch up on them all the time, and I can't catch them all.
There's so many.
I know. And with how busy my schedule is, I normally, like, it sounds horrible, I fast forward and catch a 5-minute clip, like right in the middle, get some good conversation, and then normally I'm like, okay, I gotta go do something.
Right. No, I totally get it. But God, it's so cool, and it like really like it gives me so much faith and like hope for the future, right? Like God, when I was coming up, like I did feel like I had to be one of the guys. I was wearing men's uniforms, and right?
Same. I actually was very fortunate. I paired with a company. There's another girl on the NASCAR side of things, and she got
talk about that.
Yeah, so torqued. So I was the same thing. I was wearing guys' pants. There's a lot of unnecessary room in those pants that you don't need. But girls' pants, you go to Walmart or anywhere and you try to get Dickies, but they don't fit right. And then you get black jeans. Like, of course, we have to wear black, and the pockets are this big, and you can't fit around or anything in there. I'm like, what are we supposed to do with these? And then
girls don't need pockets. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, we don't stick out of all the people that need pockets, it's women, okay? Like, we carry around so many things with us all the time. And a couple years in, I was wearing men's pants for the longest time because I needed the pockets, because when we're in the staging lanes, I still make adjustments to the car up to 2 pairs before we run. So I always have stuff in my pockets. So I had to wear guys' pants. And somehow I saw someone share this post that they were launching this new women's workwear company. And I was all about it. I look at these pants and they scream Dickies, but they're comfortable. They had 7 pockets, pen pockets, extra belt loops in the back so that they don't gap out. When you bend over, we don't need to be giving anyone a show. And so I got a hold of Liz, and Liz, she is a NASCAR tire specialist for a cup team. And she was sick of it. She goes, so you know what? I'm going to create my own. So I'm very fortunate. I'm a brand ambassador for her, and I share her company over on the NHRA side of things.
Nice.
And it's just been cool to see that, like you said, you're talking to all these women and so many different paths that they're taking. And finally, it's like everything's coming full circle and we're seeing the adjustments in the industry that we really need to see. And it's crazy. And like your lives and bringing light to it. And I've been fortunate enough to be a part of other women's groups and conferences. And it's so cool to go from being 7 years old and nobody being there for you necessarily to having this massive group of women that have come out of the woodworks and been like, yes, this is us. I love it. I'm here for it.
It is so exciting. It is so good to see. And yeah, like sometimes I get like caught up in the trees and I don't see the forest, and then getting to step back and be like, oh my gosh, like the change has been huge. It has been huge.
Yes.
And you're a part of that. So thank you for being like this next generation.
You as well. Huge shout outs.
Well, you guys are making some pretty crazy waves. Your generation is really rocking it. It's cool. It's cool to see.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're freezing up a little bit. Oh, I don't. No, wait. I got you back.
You're back. I think I'm back. Are we good? Perfect.
Yes. We're good. So when you were starting out, I mean, starting right in the pits, knowing nothing, getting like brought up to speed so quickly, that must have been a ton of pressure. Like male, female, regardless. Just as a newbie, you're working on cars that people's lives are dependent on. Like, that's intense.
Yeah. Yes.
How do you handle that pressure?
It's crazy because the pressure still 6 years later is there. So everyone always says it's the clutch guy's fault when these cars go down the track. Essentially, we have 11,000 horsepower that we are trying to get to the ground. And it's all controlled by what I do. Now, granted, the crew chief has a lot to do with that and how he tunes it. But if I don't do my job 100%, his tune-up goes right out the window. And we only have 3 seconds to figure out whether or not it's going to work. So even now, it's like constantly on the starting line, like, okay, everything's good. And I'm confident in my job now, but especially when we make changes. I'm nervous as far as the tune-up part of it. Like, okay, we made changes. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? But when I first got there, I remember writing everything down. Like, I would go home at the end of the night and write so much stuff down about like what my crew chief said and everything. And then I'd be up for hours. I'm not going to lie. My sleep habits went out the window, just constantly thinking about it. And then when you do things so quickly and so repetitively, you know, you can run up to 8 times in a weekend that we do that. And so you get in a rhythm where you're like, did I torque that? Did I do this? Because you've done it so many times that you're like, can't separate the rounds. So it really takes organization and detailed notes and everything. So I remember like sometimes I would stay late at the shop just because nobody else was there. And I would like everybody would leave and I'd be like, yeah, I'm good. And then I'd stay. I'd stay till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, soaking it all in. And sometimes even just plain staring at it and just like taking it in and really focusing on what I needed to do while nobody else was around and nobody else was like, I didn't feel like somebody was watching me and looking at me weird. And I could just kind of take it in at my own time. So then by the time the next day came along, I could reset, ask the questions I needed to ask, and continue on. So the pressure is still on every single weekend. And this year, our team dynamics changed a little bit. At the beginning of the season, we had personnel change. We're kind of a non-typical team. Half of our team is full-time, half of our team flies in. Oh. So I have kind of taken over daily functions at the shop with my 3 other guys that are here. So now not only am I in charge of my department, I have taken on ordering parts, making sure that the 3 of them know what they're doing, calling people nonstop, hotels, travel, making sure we get on the road on time. If we have a problem on the road, actually yesterday we just blew a truck tire on the way back and we were on the side of the road for 6 hours. But it was all that kind of stuff came on to me this year, whereas I was just felt like coming into my 7th season, like I was 100% in the clutch department and I was moving towards learning how to tune the clutch versus the mechanical end of it. And then kind of got hit with all this extra responsibilities. So now the pressure is on making sure that supercharger guy has all of his parts, and the head department has all their parts on top of running the day-to-day operations here and teaching my new guys, you know, everything about drag racing as I've learned it. So it's pressure. So crazy.
No pressure at all there.
Yeah.
That they are lucky to have you. Good Lord.
Oh, thank you so much.
That is a lot. That is a lot.
Yep, it is. I'm a huge Excel spreadsheet person. I could just tell you that much. Everything is laid out. We actually installed a full wall of a whiteboard back there for me to write everybody's tasks down on. So that way they can not bother me every 2 seconds. Just go look at your list, pick something, and do it. Okay?
Just
like,
mom the team.
Yeah. Yes, essentially. Dead mother, always.
Do you find, I mean, you just moved from, like, not just, but recently moved from a team that you had been with since day one to a new team and working with a new crew and, you know, new people. Was there, or when you have new people come in working for you now as part of this team, are there things that you find that you do to kind of nip things in the butt as far as the gender issue?
Yes. So when I had gotten to my first team, I was lucky I knew at least one of the guys, which kind of made me feel comfortable there. But I think very quickly they learned that I can be sassy. I'm a very straightforward human. So if I don't like something, you're going to probably know about it. But it was definitely a point where explaining to them to separate me being mean and essentially guys go right to you're being a B, you know, they go right to that. But if they're rude and nasty, they're not an asshole. So it's like you try to explain to them, like, it's no different than when you are yelling at your guy friend over there than when I get sassy, but to you it sounds wrong because I'm a female. So you have to separate that right from the start, because I'm not intending to be drama. I'm not, that's like the last thing on my list. That is out of here. I don't deal with none of that. But so trying to explain to them that I'm not being a drama queen. I'm not being a princess. I'm being direct with you. I don't like this, or this needs to be changed, or you need to go do this. And you not having that misconception of I'm just being rude to be rude because I'm a female and that's what girls do. So separating that early is huge. Most people that come into the team, if they've been with another team, it's horrible sometimes. I'm not missed. Everybody knows who I am. Good, you know, for I guess a good reason, right? But it's hard to miss me. The only one with bright blonde hair and makeup and nails running around the pit. So they know coming in. Everybody knows I'm a sass queen, and I will most definitely tell you how I'm feeling. And I can be loud. I'm from New York. I think that's just our thing up there. We're very loud individuals. So
yep, I resemble that comment.
yes. So they're always like, you're yelling. I'm like, no, I'm just talking. They're like, no, you're being loud. Right. And I'm like, okay, I'll whisper now. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, that's just my voice. But so once everybody pretty much knows me, so they know kind of coming in, and it's almost, I don't know if they're intimidated or scared, but most of them are pretty like, I'm going to just stay over here for a second and I'm going to figure you out because I don't know how to deal with you quite yet. But if they're brand new, normally they've seen it with a sign of respect as, you know, she is in charge here. I need to listen to her. And I've really never had an issue with someone like being like, okay, you're a girl and I have a problem with that. And I'm so glad that has changed, you know, since being little and dealing with that driving and then growing up. And now people just walk in and be like, okay, what are we doing on the car? Like, it's not even a question. It seems, at least in my encounters, and I know people have dealt with that for sure, but I've been very, very lucky not to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool to hear. Does age play in at all? I know nothing. Are you young for folks doing what you do?
I'm actually like almost on the older side of things.
Really?
So
okay.
Most people are on like you have your crew chiefs. Most of them, I would say average age would be 50, right? They've been out here for a long time. That's how they become a crew chief, and they've dedicated their life to it. Then the other majority of it, I would say most are under the age of 25.
Oh, wow.
This job can be very, very hard on a person. I mean, for most people, it's a 5-year plan. I give all the credit in the world to the guys that are out there married and have kids, because we travel to 24 races a year. On average, you could work 60 to 80 hours a week between going to the track. I mean, you race the schedule that you have, and you have to work on the car afterwards. And then you got to drive 24 hours to the next track and set up and do it all over again. And you're away from your family and everything for sometimes weeks. Like at the beginning of the year, we were out in Phoenix and Pomona, and we were gone for 3.5 weeks, close to a month, where we don't come home at all. So it's a lifestyle change. You literally dedicate your life to living out of a suitcase at a hotel or out of the truck. We don't normally stay in the trucks, but I mean, you're traveling constantly. And you miss birthdays, you miss family events, you miss weddings, for close friends and stuff like that. You have to make that sacrifice. So for a lot of people, they're out here for like 5 years or so, and they're ready to return to normal life, or they get married, or they have a child, and they want to be home for all those things. So I'm actually kind of edging towards, I would say, being one of the older crew guys out here. All 3 of my other guys at the shop right now are under the age of 25. Oh, wow. One being 19, fresh out of high school. So very young, and they don't have attachments. They haven't bought in a house. They don't have a wife. They don't have kids. So for them, it's easy to pack up and be like, yeah, let's go work on race cars. So there's very kind of few my age that have stuck with it. Like, this is their plan for life. I like it since I was 7. Like, this is all I want to do. I didn't have a backup plan. Like, we're just going to go work on race cars forever. Right. Whereas my fiance, he happened by this by choice. So he works on another team. We actually compete directly against each other. Uh-oh. It's crazy. He's not competitive. I, of course, am. So
of course you are.
I make sure he knows we're about to throw down, and I don't care if we're engaged or not over there. It's over with, buddy.
I love it.
But he stumbled upon it one day. He was one of the guys at the ropes. He had gone to school for auto body and was just talking to another crew member, and they said, yeah, you want a job? And he was like, yeah, this sounds cool. And then that's how we met, was of course out racing. And so now he's out there, I think still, because I'm out there still. Because for him, it was just like, yeah, it was cool, but I'd be cool with just working on cars at home too. Like, this wasn't a life plan for him. But we get to travel the same schedule, but work separately, of course. So we have a really, really cool lifestyle that we get to live. So I think he's sticking around while I stick around. So
what are your, okay, wait, hang on. I have to pause for a second because we're like 2 minutes left in our hour.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I know.
Sorry.
I just looked up and I was like, oh crap. Are you okay with going a little bit over? I know you have a crazy schedule.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I talk too much. I'm sorry.
No, please. I'm having a great time. I'm loving hearing all about all of this. What do you think, like, what is the next thing that you want to do within NHRA, within building these cars? Do you want to be a leader, like a crew chief?
I think right now crew chief it's far-fetched. I'm not sure if I want to be a crew chief. I think the next step for me would be car chief. So what the car chief does is pretty much, in short terms, babysits everybody else on the race car. But that means every department on the race car. You can build cylinder heads, you can build blowers, you can do the bottom ends and all that, and build the short blocks. And I haven't been able to transfer to those departments because, unfortunately, when you get in the clutch department and you become good at it, you don't ever leave. Because it's something that is so skilled, and takes so much to learn. I mean, most clutch assistants, so I do have an assistant, are an assistant for 5 years before they become the clutch guy. And I was the assistant for 7 races. Wow. And that's on average. I mean, that changes, of course, on the person and how fast they pick up information. But right now I'm working with my assistant to train him. He's a year in. on to be able to do my job, so we could be a clutch team, so that the both of us can do anything at any point in time that relate to our jobs, and we can knock it out faster. But it takes a while to get there. And then once you become good at it, when other teams start calling and trying to hire you, they're calling because they want you to do the clutch for them.
Right.
Most of the clutch guys I know out here have been out here for so long. But I think in the off seasons, I've been trying to cross train in other departments. I've been trying to learn more, and I think my goal would be car chief, and pretty much my job in between rounds and at the racetrack is to pop in between the departments, make sure everything's going right. If they have a question like, hey, I'm not sure about this, can we run this? Make the executive decision on that, which is going to take a lot for me to get to that point. But I think that's the next goal for me. And then that will allow me to open up to maybe learning how to tune a car. But that's a lot of responsibility because it all falls on you, then every bit of it.
I don't know if you're at where you're at now already at your age. I feel like it's not that unrealistic in the future. You got a long life ahead of you.
Hopefully so.
Is there an area that you have like the most desire to learn more? If you could get out of the clutch
yes,
world?
actually, I think cylinder heads would be next. I think because very like the clutch, the cylinder head has a bunch of moving parts. You know, you have your keepers, retainers, valves, springs in each chamber, and you're CCing each chamber. And we actually tune these cars as 8 individual motors. The fuel and air ratio going into each cylinder is actually different because of the way the manifold forces the air into the intake. We have jets in the injector, the blower, and the cylinder head that's feeding fuel to the cylinders.
Oh, wow.
And those are all jetted differently. And I think a lot of all that on top of CCing each individual one and making the valve correction to even out the cylinder head and stuff like that. There's so many intricate details that go on in there that I think that I would want that to be my next stop, because I think that would be a challenge for me. And not that anything else on the car isn't, but a lot of the other departments are pretty cut and dry. You kind of, to build a supercharger, you put strips in it, you cut it, you measure it, and there's your supercharger. To build a short block, you put a crankshaft in, you measure it, you measure the bore sizes, you set cam timing, and it's over with. Cylinder heads can change very much so, like the clutch. If we go out and we hurt something, you stretch the valves. All of those numbers change constantly. So you have to make up for it. So I think that would be next. And on the outskirts of drag racing, there's a very small hint of me that someday wants to go F1 racing. Oh. Recently become a fan, and I'm not sure if there are any women mechanics on the F1 series, but I want to travel worldwide. So I think the traveling part of it for me has my interest, but and they're just such a unique form of racing. They're on their own level of what they do over there. So maybe I'll venture out from drag racing someday if that's a possibility.
Right.
But we'll see.
You hate a challenge, huh?
Oh yeah. Don't tell me no. It's probably not, or don't dare me to do anything. Yeah. It normally ends bad.
Yeah. I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. This has been absolutely fantastic. I do have one question I like to end on. Actually, before we go there, is there anything else that you want to share about who you are and what you do?
I honestly, I think we've been all around it. I mean, honestly, I'm very lucky to be with my team and in the clutch assistant that I have. His nickname's Izzy. He really, a lot of people see my job as, you know, I'm the shining star per se. You know, when the clutch department goes right, I'm normally on the other end of it. The clutch assistant does so much for me. He cuts all of my clutch discs for me. He does a lot of the small little work, but at the end of the day, it takes the two of us to do it. And a lot of people don't realize that the clutch, they see mainly at the car, you know, he's helping me put it in the car and bolt stuff together. I'm making all the adjustments and he's just kind of putting tires on the car. But behind the scenes and at the shop, the clutch team is literally like, you have to have two people. And he is so much more of a part of it than people realize. And for any of the Top Fuel teams out there, we kind of take a lot of the credit without, you know, shining light on who backs us up. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So our final question,
Okay.
words of advice to the younger you out there, or another little girl or even a little boy out there who wants to do what you're doing.
Okay. So I said this at a conference a few months ago, and I wasn't BSing by any means, but it was just kind of words that came out of my mouth. And apparently it clicked with several, so I'm going to share it again.
Awesome.
I have always used the word no as the fuel to my yes. There's nothing that has ever been an issue that I couldn't solve. There's always a way around it. Someone tells you no, you find a way to do it. Someone stands in your way and says you can't do it, you find a way that you can do it. And it all starts with you. When you wake up in the morning, you are worthy of yourself. And you're worthy of everything that you do for yourself. You're not there to do it for anyone but you. So if you wake up in the morning and you're happy, and you go to bed at night and you're happy with everything that you've done, then, I mean, that's all that you can have in the world. And having it, going to work and loving what you do is key. Like, I can't imagine saying that. And maybe some people love going to an office, but I can't imagine saying anything other than I wake up every day and work on this killer race car behind me. And there's nothing else I would dream of. And just push yourself. Don't be afraid of what the people on the outside are viewing you as. Confidence is key. Just go for it. And when you mess up, own it. Own it and learn from it. Because experience is recognizing a mistake before it happens again. And you're never going to gain that if you don't probably make that mistake the first time. I've made several of them through my career, and some of them, a lot of them are little. They stick in my mind forever. But really, no is the fuel to my yes. My guys make fun of me all the time for that because I think it sounds funny. But seriously, anytime I have been told no, it's just fire burning inside of me to make sure that I make whatever is a no happen one way or another.
I love it. I told you I wouldn't ask any more questions, but I have one more. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I'm all good. We're good.
Good. Where do you think that came from, that ability to just keep going and not have any limits and be perseverant? And where did that come from in you? Do you know?
I'm not sure if I can pinpoint it to anything exactly. I know I'm very fortunate for the way I was raised. It was never presented to me by my parents that what I was doing was different. They never said, hey, you're going to encounter this with people. We just hit it head on. You know, when it came to us and it was an issue at that time, we just took care of it. And when I came home from school, I'm sure I came home crying a few times because I was the weird one that liked race cars. And I just remember my mom, she's such a strong woman. And she just always just said, you can be whoever you want to be. Because at the end of the day, it's you. It doesn't matter what anybody else, they don't have to deal with you. You wake up with you. And so I think necessarily like in myself, it was the competitive spirit. And on the outside, racing and actually driving, I looked very reserved and patient. But in my soul, it was burning. And I stayed quiet for a while. And then now it's just like, no, I'm going for it. And I'm going to tell you I'm going for it because it's happening. So I don't know if there's any necessarily moment in time that I can pinpoint it to, but I've always just been extremely competitive in a respectful way, like competitive within myself. And always being humble about my experiences. I'm so very lucky. I mean, for all the chances and opportunities that I had, even tonight, like this is amazing to be on here with you. Like I've seen the show. I've watched your lives. I've watched All Girls Garage. Like my dad has Motor Trend. Trust me, it's been on. But having like people like you and knowing that I have the opportunity now to help make a difference with you and others in somebody else's future is huge. Is absolutely huge.
That's awesome. And it is just as much an honor for me that you joined. This has been so fantastic getting to meet you, hear your story. Woman, you are incredible. I have no doubts that you will continue to do amazing things and be a role model for so many others out there, both male and female. So keep
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. You're a boss.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You too. Like someday this is going to be in person, I hope.
Yes,
I hope,
please.
instead of virtual. I love virtual, don't get me wrong, but
Yes.
I mean, it's been an absolute honor, and it's really, really fun to be on here, and I hope everyone enjoyed. I can see, I don't know, I haven't been paying attention. We got such in a conversation there. I see what you're saying. You don't see it. I was so worried about like, oh my God, what people are going to say in the comments, and I'm just going to be like over here glued. No. This just flowed, and it was great. And it's so great to share the same experiences. It's so fun to meet other women that understand, like we know what we have to go through. It's crazy.
Totally. I love it. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. We will be in touch more. Definitely want to do this in real life at some point.
Perfect.
And to everybody who tuned in tonight, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. And make sure you come back next week to meet another awesome tradeswoman.
Yes.
Big shout out to our sponsor, Drive Time, for their commitment to women in the trades and supporting us. It's very appreciated, and make sure you give them some love. Make sure you go check out this amazing woman, Classically Clutch. Follow her pages, share what she's doing, see what she's doing, throw her some support, and keep up to date with her. And until then, thank you all. Be good to yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you guys later.
Lots of
thank
love.
You so much.
Bye-bye.